What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 2 update show of my real 2018 roster, the #1 community roster on Xbox One. So let's get into it here, talking about the studs and duds that I saw on film from NFL Week 2. So starting with Matthew Stafford, a guy that I've never been terribly high on. You know, about midway through last season, he started to show some pretty special flashes, starting to extend plays more, and he didn't really show that in the first 8 years of his career, in the first half of last season, so I was a little skeptical coming into this year. I thought he was borderline top 10, but definitely carrying over to this year. I think it's safe to say that Stafford has grown more in his last 8 games than he did in his first 8 NFL seasons, and I'm definitely buying in. I don't think there's anything on the film that would really say that he's anything less than a top 5 NFL quarterback right now. He's definitely heading in the right direction. We've seen this from guys like Andy Dalton, I think, that getting up there into their 30s, that quarterbacks can really continue to grow, which I think it's kind of a misconception that if a guy's not good right away that he's going to bust out. That's something that we've seen in the past from guys like Blake Bortles. I think we wanted to say the same thing about Jared Goff. So just kind of something to keep in mind there with the modern NFL, that don't write guys off after the first few seasons, or in Matthew Stafford's case, the first 6 or 7. So really excited to see Stafford continue to grow maybe and really emerge with the upside of becoming the best quarterback in football. I know it sounds crazy because we've seen so much of him, but his growth over the last 8 games has been incredible. So keeping an eye on Stafford here, continue to rise. Now we got a couple Ravens here. So Brandon Williams, +4, just a stud up front, a big reason that defense and really that defensive line has been so dominant to start the season. And then Terrell Suggs, he looks younger and he looks healthy, +5 for Terrell Suggs. He, I think, is the #1 reason that this defense has become so dominant this year. I know they haven't played a ton of great offenses, but he looks great. I mean, he was manhandling Joe Thomas last week, which is no small feat. And then our next 3 risers are all running backs. So Leonard Fournette in Jacksonville. We've seen enough now to know that Leonard Fournette is a legit star running back. And then Chris Thompson going up +3 here from the Redskins. So elusive in space, maybe the best playmaker for that Redskins team right now. Terrell Pryor hasn't really done a whole lot. And then Chris Carson for the Seahawks, getting +6, getting some respect here. Now, he is the full-time starter. He looks great. He looks explosive, but perhaps a little Christine Michael-esque that I will forewarn here. You know, with that terrible offensive line, they really just want an explosive runner, a guy that maybe is going to run into the back of the line 4 times, but then is going to bust one out for 20 yards, and that's Chris Carson right now. It's not anyone else on this roster, so for now, he might not be rated as high as some of those other running backs, but definitely the guy that they want out there right now. So now let's move on and talk about the duds from the week. Got 3 duds. #1 is Brandon Marshall, and I really questioned that signing. From the get-go, I figured, you know, he's got that NFL Network gig. He gets cut from the Jets. And then New York with that terrible offense and that offensive line, and everyone's buying in. He's like a top 6-round fantasy pick. And I'm just sitting there like, I don't know, he's not fast. If he's not into it mentally, I mean, what has always made Brandon Marshall so great is that competitive physical nature, and he's not using any of that. He's not going up on jump balls. He's dropping balls down the sideline. He's dropping slant routes. I know the offensive line and Eli Manning's poor play isn't helping him out at all, but he is definitely a mid-tier wide receiver 2 at best. So 78 overall, coming way down here, and honestly, he might continue to fall. I mean, is he better than Allen Hurns right now, who's a 75 on my roster? I don't know. We're going to have to keep watching Brandon Marshall there. Christian McCaffrey is another guy who I frankly hated that draft pick. I thought it was a terrible pick. I thought he was bigger Theo Riddick, and honestly, that might be a disadvantage for a guy like that because you can tackle him higher. You can keep your feet under you better. There were Le'Veon Bell comparisons for Christian McCaffrey, a guy who did, 10 bench reps and showed no power at the college level, and he is showing the exact same thing in the NFL. We thought the Panthers might adjust their offense around him. But let's be honest, this is a terrible scheme fit. They are failing to change their offense because they're playing in close games, and they're clearly going back to their roots, just using Cam Newton as a trebuchet and chucking deep balls to their big receivers. Christian McCaffrey is a non-factor on this offense, so he comes down, and really until he starts to show me something other than being a receiving back, he's going to stay here. And I honestly think by the end of this season, there's a chance that McCaffrey just pulls a reverse Ty Montgomery and is listed as a straight-up slot receiver because, honestly, I think that's his best role in the NFL unless he got in an offense that really uses receiving running backs. And then my last big guy I want to talk about here is DeMarco Murray, and I know he's injured, so I'm not going to overreact too much here, but just a -1. There was one specific play, looked slow in open space, and then tried to cut and basically fell over himself, so there's a chance that was the injury. But Derrick Henry breathing down his neck, and just to spoil here, Derrick Henry goes up +1 this week. He looked incredible. So really monitoring this situation. They got a big game against the Seahawks, but DeMarco Murray might be looking at kind of that downward slope of an older running back. So we'll see what happens there. We got 4 more fallers this week now as we look in here. But that really wraps up the big name changes there. So we're going to rattle off everyone else whose ratings changed this week. Deshaun Kaiser -1. Really don't think he's the future in Cleveland. Never have. Could be a blessing and a curse, though, for Cleveland if it results in them getting a top pick and getting one of these big quarterbacks in the draft next year. And then Kenny Britt going down -4. Kind of similar to Brandon Marshall in a way, but just not showing any explosiveness. And he kind of had a big year last year, which led him to go up, but now he's kind of back to where he was for the rest of his career here, which is a mid-tier wide receiver 2. And then in Dallas, obviously they have that embarrassing loss. I'm not going to overreact. You guys know I'm very high in Denver this year, and I picked Denver to win that game. Jalen Smith, though, he goes down. After moving up +1 last week, he moved up because I thought it was a big deal that he was healthy, but he looked pretty bad. Zone coverage was pretty terrible, and he had some missed tackles that led to big plays. So he's going to have to really pick it up. In Philadelphia, we got Derek Barnett going down. Just, a guy that I really like. I think he's still got a great future, but had him a little high. He's still not starting over Vinny Curry, so until he's really starting and making plays, he's going to stay here. So that's the rest of my fallers this week. Let's run through the rest of the risers. We got Trevor Siemian +2, looking very good, like Alex Smith-esque, I would say. And then in Cleveland, going up is Ricardo Lewis. He was practice squad level, 64 overall, so he gets a +4. Rashard Higgins, not Ricardo Lewis, but going +4, so going to be a little more usable, but, let's see more. It was 7 catches in a garbage time game, so a lot of people think it's actually going to be Ricardo Lewis who really capitalizes on the Corey Coleman injury, who, by the way, just can't stay healthy. For the Buccaneers, we got Noah Spence moving up here. A guy that was, I would say, decently touted as a rookie. Didn't show a ton, maybe some flashes, but really their best edge rusher. And it's a role that this team really needed. I think he could have a breakout week this week against the Vikings. So let's keep an eye on Noah Spence this week. Rising again is Kareem Hunt. Already talked about him last week. But a true do-it-all running back and a guy that looks awesome. Some other risers for the Chiefs as they continue to impress this year. Chris Jones won the AFC Defensive Player of the Week, was really impressive all of last year, and is honestly emerging as a top 10 defensive lineman in the NFL. I love watching Chris Jones play football. Travis Kelce is going to move up 1 this week. And, I'm gonna slow down here, but Travis Kelce is probably the best tight end in football right now over Gronk, yes. Not reflected in my ratings yet, but that's just kind of how I feel right now, and in a few weeks that might be reflected in my roster. Also playing decent for the Chiefs is Eric Murray. He gets a +2, playing in place of Eric Berry, who's hurt. Now, Eric Murray was a really good college cornerback at Minnesota, so a pretty good cover safety, it seems, and he might continue to rise if he can make some plays. Now the Dolphins get a big win on the road in LA against the Chargers. Jay Cutler going +1, so now the same rating as Tannehill. I thought Cutler looked really good. Let's see it for another week, another road game against the Jets. But, Jay Cutler could see himself moving up into that top 15, 16 range. I've always liked Jay Cutler. He just never really had a lot of help and then gets all the criticism when he loses. But I've actually kind of liked his game quite a bit. And if he's not making too many dumb decisions, which he didn't this week, then he's a really good NFL quarterback. And the Dolphins' ceiling, frankly, is much higher with that Jay Cutler than anything we've ever seen from Ryan Tannehill. Now, for the Jaguars, I will say that pass rush went right back to where I thought it was, where I was projecting it to be, which is a below-average pass rush. I'm not lowering either of these guys, Calais Campbell or Yannick Ngakoue, but we might be a week away from that. They both rose last week after huge games against a terrible Texans O-line, so we'll keep an eye on that. But Myles Jack does go up +2. He looks healthier than he did last year, and he was uncomfortable last year. He missed a ton of, I'm not going to say a ton, but he had some very embarrassing plays, I would say. But he looks like he's starting to put things together, and I'm impressed with him. He gets the benefit of playing next to some great linebackers as well, so definitely going to keep watching Myles Jack. For the Packers, they had that huge loss, but, they had so many guys hurt. No one's really falling there. Actually, a riser is Kevin King, who looked really good. Demarius Randall does come down a touch, by the way, but Kevin King was put on Julio Jones in the second quarter, and Julio Jones was pretty quiet from that point on. I think Kevin King on the game was targeted 5 times for 1 catch for 6 yards. A guy that probably would have been a first-round pick in just about any other draft class over the last few years, but it was a deep corner class, was the first pick in the second round. Could be the corner that the Packers desperately need here. And then for the Patriots, Dietrich Wise Jr. had a pretty good week in New Orleans. Want to see more before we really rise him up, but definitely starting to show signs of a guy that can start opposite of Trey Flowers and make an impact on this defense who desperately needs help at D-line. For the Texans, J.J. Watt started to look better. I lowered him last week because he looked slower and like a guy playing with a big back injury, but definitely looked better this week, so he gets +1. If he keeps playing well, he'll obviously continue to creep up towards that 99 mark. Mentioned Derrick Henry rising +1. He looks awesome. And then my last guy here is Xavier Rhodes. Gets +1. I had some hesitation on him just because he sort of broke out last year, but really emerging as one of the best corners in football. Plays Mike Evans this week, did really good against Antonio Brown. If he has a dominant performance against Mike Evans, look for Xavier Rhodes to be one of the stars of next week. So that wraps up the Week 2 roster update. I'm looking forward to Week 3 and the Week 3 update as well. And guys, make sure you let me know if there's guys that on your team, your NFL team, that you think I'm missing here. Let me know. I really like getting those recommendations. Obviously, I can't catch everything watching the game just once, but a lot of times the fans do catch things. So let me know of guys that you want me to look into, and I'll go and watch the film and let you know what I think. That's the beauty of a community roster like this. So cheers, everyone. Until next time, peace out.